Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, it's a pleasure to have you here with us. The event of today is called Youth as the Caretaker of Nature for Tomorrow. And of course, welcome also to all the people online. Hi, Mom and Dad. It's the first time for me on such stages, so it's just to take down the tension. Today, it's the first time we're having a joint event between the World Farmer Organization and our host Nestlé. And we really hope this will be one of many, since we really value the power of collaboration and networking between companies coming from different sectors. Today, as you know, is the day for nature, land use, and oceans. And we will focus exactly on this. And starting from the problem we're facing, the difficulties we are already facing due to climate change, but we're not here just to complain about what's going on. We want also to show how we are already being part, as young farmers, of the solution. My name is Silvia Caprara. Maybe you can guess from how I move my hands that I'm from Italy. And here with me there are Mawiji Harbert from Uganda and Cinzia Tiwidi from Malawi. For this year, we have been part of a high-level capacity-building program called the Gymnasium. The Gymnasium is planned by the World Farmer Organization in order to train future leaders for the agricultural sector. And now, let me just start with a word, which is stakeholder. I think you've heard it for sure during these days, stakeholder. I've studied English for many years at school, but I've never heard of this word there. So I had to Google it the first time I heard it. And it's from Google, a person or a group of people who are involved in a process, and therefore they have the interest in its success. And I don't know if it's just me or if you agree. I think this is very broad and generic. It can apply to anyone, but at the same time to no one expressly. So, as youth, we want to tell you that for today and for the days to come, we want to change this word, stakeholder, into something easier, which is we, and which is also you, of course. Now let me just give you an idea of what is going to happen in the next hour. It will be, of course, a panel here, and it will start showing our perspective from an agripreneur, then moving to a farmers' organization, and finally to our host, Nestlé. But it will also be interactive, because of course we want you all to feel involved here. And we want to start with a very short game, just to be sure not for you to fall asleep, since it's just after lunchtime. So think to your homeland, and I will list different effects related to climate change, and please raise your hand if you already this effect in your homeland. So let's start with temperature. You're already having, you know, you can already raise both hands. So let's start with temperature. Do you have an average increased temperature? And we can do this also. And the opposite, do you have maybe lower temperatures, not maybe in the average, but maybe some peaks in moments in which it should be hotter? And if you're facing both ends, well, I see, I'm not alone here. And then moving to water. Maybe you're facing droughts, lack of water. The opposite, too much water, maybe violent storms or unpredictable storms. And both? Okay, I guess we are all agreeing on this. I'll tell you about my experience. I am a winemaker from Italy. The winery was started by my grandfather 60 years ago. And my dad is now, he is 57 years old. And he faced just 3 or 4 years in which he had major storms causing big damages to the harvest. I joined the winery 3 years ago. And in 3 years, I already faced 2 years with big problems to the harvest. So I'm really facing that something is changing. And at the same time, if I think of water, in Verona, my city, between the period from January to April of this year, we had a reduction in rainfalls of around 96%. I can't remember a single rainy day during winter. And then in May, the opposite. I can't remember a single sunny day in May. It rained too much. So now I brought here my experience, and I want to change perspective. So now let's just take a flight of 5,000 kilometers to meet a practical farmer, as he likes to introduce himself. And so I leave the floor to Mawiji Harbert.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mawiji Harbert, as Livia has introduced me already. I'm a practical farmer. I'll start from that. I own 10 acres of soybean in Uganda. This is quite a high side of a youth in Uganda. I'll start with I wasn't privileged enough to grow up from a family farm as many individuals in Uganda. But I took agriculture as a choice. It is something I pursued because I believed, and I still believe till now, it is something that is profitable if done as a business. I'm here today to share my story, as Livia said, but I'm going to phase it in 3 sections. First, I'm going to give you a perspective of climate change to me as a farmer, a young farmer from Uganda. Secondly, I'll also give you a perspective of what I'm doing to cope up with the changes that have happened. And thirdly, I'll also give you a perspective of how I'm trying to mitigate the causes of climate change. And then at the end, I'll give you a take home of what I think we should all do to do something about it. As the theme says right now, youth as caretakers of nature, land use and oceans. So I want to own the process. Maybe if we could start with this, a very beautiful picture. When I was studying in kindergarten at our schools in Uganda, they used to give us the other picture on, I think that's the left-hand side, where they draw the atmosphere very well, they draw the biosphere, they draw the geosphere, and the hydrosphere. Of course, these are hard words. In kindergarten, they were not written as the way they were. But it was as simple as they draw the atmosphere represented by the clouds and the sun. The biosphere was represented by the forest and the human being standing on a mast like that. And the geosphere was represented by rocks being drawn. And underneath the rocks, there was water. And then besides here, the hydrosphere, of course, it was water, but they didn't write hydrosphere, they wrote water. And they represented it as a cycle of events. And just an example, they used to tell us how rain is formed. So we started with the rays hitting the ground or the biosphere, which had land, and then vapor was moving up. They also represented the other side of the hydrosphere with water. When rain hits, the vapor goes up. And what happens? It condenses and forms rainfall. When the rainfall came, it percolated, made a suitable environment in the soil or the geosphere, then plants could grow. The excess water drilled down to the geosphere, still the rocks then percolated into the water side. And then what had evaporated came back to the waters. Not so? So it was that easy. But I want to tell you today, that was a perspective of a young kid. Growing up and interacting with the environment, I've come to realize it's more complex than it is. But the difference and the similarity between the two, it represented a balance. There was a balance and interaction between these 4 spheres: the atmosphere, the biosphere, the geosphere, and the hydrosphere. And this is what informed what is known as the climate system, the interactions between nature. Over time, what has happened, these interactions have been disrupted by our human activities. And of course, we would say we are trying to get into civilization, mechanization, urbanization. So all the activities we have done have interrupted these processes. On this right-hand side, this now clearly represents what is happening. And it shows, if you could say, this is the human influence, what is causing. And we could see how much greenhouse gases we are emitting. Now, this is the complicated side, and this is the reality of the story. The balance has been lost somewhere. And it's our role, as me and you, to try to restore the balance that we had from the start. I'll take you now to another aspect. That is my understanding of climate change. But 2, the effects are there because all of you in the game, you raised that at least you have felt the effects. On my farm of 10 acres, as I've told you already, average yield is between 600 to 800 kilograms per acre of soybean. Last year, that was, in 2021, we had drought that was really very severe. And my yields that I harvested that season was 100 kilograms per acre. This represents an 80% reduction in yield because of the drought. The rainfall patterns are totally erratic because 70% or 60% of Ugandans depend on rain-fed agriculture. It was very dreadful to me as a young farmer. We all know the challenges faced by young farmers, the access to finance and blah, blah. But I try to manage because I do this as an option. I said, okay, this has happened, the challenges have come, but I have to adapt because this is what it is as what they say these days. So that brings me to the third option of what I'm doing. I adapted because I knew it is still profitable. I can still make money in this sector. We go to the aspect that I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to mitigate. No, first, I'll try to adapt. Before mitigation, I'm adapting. So what I did, now I'm planting resistant hybrid varieties of soybean. The yield is now a bit better because for them they give around between 800 to 850 kilograms per acre, and it's achievable. That was the first adaptation measure I took. The second one, as I was explaining to you, the geosphere has water underneath. Because I'm not near a river, I knew I could harvest water from underneath. So I got a solar pump, I dug a shallow well, and now I'm pumping water from the underground to the upper side, stored in the reservoir, and I irrigate my fields. I'm not depending on the rainfalls, but that is an average. Now, youth farmer that really knows that farming is a business and you must invest into it. That is what I'm doing to adapt. But on the other side, I still feel we can restore the balance by mitigating. So I'm also taking up mitigation practices to see that the balance still comes back. The interactions are still happening. So one of them, I'll give you a couple of them, about 3 of them. Then we can move to the other thing. First, we need to do minimum tillage because we talked about these greenhouse gases that are happening. So within minimum tillage, I try to minimize the opening of the land. So what I do, I plant into ridges, not using a tractor, but manually we plant into ridges, but only opening where we are going to plant from. So we minimize the other sides where we are not going to use intact so that they keep the carbon dioxide into the ground. Secondly, I'm also using what we call integrated pest management approach. Within the integrated pest management approach, what we use, or what I use on my farm, I use both the biodegradable pesticide, the concoctions that we mix around, but also I use the synthetic, pesticides. So these two, I use them interchangeably. Before any pest comes up, I use the emergency pest, the biopesticide as emergencies to eradicate or to stop the pest from coming. But in case they emerge, that is when I bring in the pesticides that are commercial. I'm doing this not because I can't afford to use the pesticide, because I want to revert back the cycle. We all know when these pesticides are used, the effects they have. They contribute to the greenhouse gases, but also if they have a long life, they are easily found into the yield of the grains, and then it brings about issues of food safety. That is integrated pest management approach. But also in that, we also use plant repellents, which can repel some of the pests. The other third aspect I'm deploying on my farm to mitigate is integrated fertilizer management. As we all know, because we are producing for an increasing population, we are still using the land intensively. So what we are doing, or what I'm doing on my farm, I'm using both the farmyard manure, but also the synthetic fertilizers. But I'm using less of the synthetic fertilizers because of their uptake. When you apply it solely, or when you apply it alone, it has high chances of linking into the ground, into the underground layers, finding itself into the oceans. So what I'm doing, I'm trying to revert back to the original nutrient concentration of the soils by applying the farmyard manure. Of course, it can happen with the organic fertilizers that are being sold now because it's commercial and it can be done. So what the organic manure does, it reverts back, it builds both the physical, chemical, and the biochemical properties of the soil, giving it its potential it used to have, striving again to find the balance we are talking about. So that's what I'm doing. Those are 3 practices I'm trying to put into place to reduce or to try to mitigate the adverse effects of climate change that are happening. I've taken up the mantle really to be the first pioneer person, not the pioneer, but I know it has to start with me, as Awathim is saying, as the youth must be on the forefront. And as I'm finishing, because of time, I want to leave you with a very small quote that all of us really can go with. We individual actions serve as catalyst for change. And I want to leave you now with this question. What would you do today if you knew it would inspire movement for tomorrow? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mawiji, for embracing first person the challenges that we are facing and for being part of a solution to bring back the balance. And now we want to zoom out from the perspective of an agripreneur to the perspective of a farmer organization. And so I leave the floor to Cinzia from Malawi.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm Cynthia Dewede, as my colleague had said, and with me is Dr. Betty Shinyamnyamu, who is the Chief Executive Officer for National Smallholder Farmers Association of Malawi, which is one of the biggest smallholder farmers association in the country. And we've heard from my colleagues, and we raised hands showing that we've been in fact infected by the change in climate. And now we're going to listen from the farmers organization perspective on what really they're doing in terms of mitigating climate change. And as it is said that the future belongs to the organized, that's why we want to listen from different perspectives on the same. So, Dr. Betty, can you please tell us, as a farmers organization, how are you enabling the youth farmers to combat the adverse effects of climate change in terms of adaptation and mitigation strategies?
Thank you very much, Cynthia, and congratulations to the previous speakers. Very inspiring, the kind of things that you said, and to see the interest that you have in agriculture and making sure that you are part of the action and part of the solution. So I really commend you for that. And as farm organizations, we're there to support you and ensure that we walk this journey together. So to come straight to your question, the first thing that I can say is, as we have also witnessed here, we know that the youth are getting more and more interested in agriculture. There's a reason that they're getting interested in agriculture. I think there was a time when the youth would actually shun away from agriculture. They didn't want to be involved in agriculture. But now we have some bold youth who have made that decision to go back to the farm. And by virtue of going back to the farm, they are interested in the environment because they know that they need the environment. And unlike, sometimes when you're old, you kind of don't want to take some decisions, especially with the environmental conservation, because you're thinking, this is something that will take a long time. But for the youth, they have the advantage that they have many more years to live. And the actions that they take today, they know that they are going to witness the fruits of those actions. So as farm organizations, we are supporting young farmers. We are seeing more and more young farmers joining the farm organizations as members. But not only as members, even as leaders, we see young farmers becoming presidents of the farm organizations, which is really interesting. But going directly to the issues, what is it that we're doing in climate smart agriculture? The first thing that I can say is that we are bringing young farmers to the discussion about climate smart agriculture, because we need to hear the voices of our young farmers. It's not good enough that we can talk about young farmers and how they're affected and all that and what interventions we need to do for them. It is more important that the young farmers are actually saying these things for themselves. They are there, we're linking them to various stakeholders, we're linking them to different initiatives so that the young farmers are part of the design, are part of the implementation, are part of the monitoring of any interventions in that had to do with climate adaptation, whatever sustainable practices that we are promoting. We want the voice of smallholder farmers to be there. Secondly, we're also investing in training and awareness to make sure that the young farmers are actually informed of what the opportunities are out there. These days, there's a lot of terminology, there's a lot of innovation, and it is very important that we do not assume that the young farmers are adequately equipped to just delve into those issues. So whether it's climate smart agriculture, we are providing training that the young farmers can understand what exactly is involved in climate smart agriculture. And like I said, because of who they are, the youth are also very quick to say, oh, why don't we change it this way? Why don't we implement it this other way? And lastly, I would also like to say that we've noted that the youth are actually quite good at adopting new technologies. They are not as risk averse as older farmers. So if there are new technologies, the youth will be the first ones to try them, will be the first ones to adopt. However, I must say that with caution, because the youth also like the media, particularly social media. And if you've got an innovation, a technology that's working very well, be sure you'll find it on TikTok. But the same token, if it's not working very well, it will also be on TikTok. And it means that, within minutes, a technology can completely be destroyed because somebody in Zimbabwe has shared how something just doesn't work and it's gone viral on TikTok. So because the youth are really using social media a lot, it's a powerhouse for disseminating information, for promoting adoption, and for showing results of what works and what doesn't work. And I think that's something that we should build on and take advantage of. Thank you.
I will just remind you to keep the microphone very close for the audience at home connected online to hear properly. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Beatty. You've talked about ownership. I think what I'm getting so much here is involving the youth for ownership of the program, which is very paramount. I, as a farmer also, I would really be happy to adopt something that I'm aware of compared to something that really I haven't heard about because it's difficult. I don't know about it. How will I adopt it? So I think you're doing quite a very good job on that one. You've talked about CSA programs. Can you please tell us what are the best practices that the youth are adopting so far?
I think I don't want to actually pinpoint this technology or the other technology, but what I can say is that when it comes to the youth, there are things that they're looking for. It's not just adopting a technology because somebody's promoting it. The technology must speak to their needs. And what are their needs? Their needs, they have individual needs. They're doing this as a business, and she talked about that. They have to earn a living from agriculture. So whatever technology, the climate smart agriculture technology that they want to employ must be something that must give them value as an individual, as an agripreneur. But in addition to that, they're also looking for something that's good for the environment. So it's not just to give you money, but it must be good for the environment as well. Something that will sustain your farming, not something that you do this year and the following year you've completely destroyed your land, you're not able to keep using your land. So it is technologies that are good for the environment, technologies that are good for you as an agripreneur, but also technologies that are good for the people. Because at the end of the day, if you are producing strawberries that are produced sustainably, that give you safe and nutritious strawberries, but also value, that's what will keep your business going.
Yeah, I kind of agree because I'm a farmer and I don't want to do something that is not profitable. We all want profitability and we want something that is sustainable. So
I think I can also add one thing there. It's also technologies that reduce drudgery. Yeah. So in other words, the youth do not want, just like anybody, they don't want to spend a lot of energy to implement something that doesn't give them value. Yeah. So I think as we're looking at technologies that the youth can easily adopt, should be technologies that are labor saving, technologies where you're able to achieve more using less. As has already been mentioned, we have less water, you have less inputs and things like that, how can you find technologies that will be able to give you more output, but using less water, using less land, less labor, as well as less inputs?
They say agriculture has to be sexy. I hear that coming out a lot. So since our last speaker is going to speak about regenerative agriculture, in your own opinion, what gaps needs to be addressed in terms of regenerative agriculture adoption?
I think the main thing that I can talk about is just information, awareness. Like I said before, there's a lot of terminologies and new technologies out there, and it's very important that farmers in general and youth farmers in particular are given adequate information, because sometimes when there's just various things, it's very easy for people to get confused. But when there's information that is provided accurately in terms of explaining what it is, how it can be done, the challenges and the like, it is actually much easier for the youth to adopt. In the same way, I'd also want to say that sometimes we present new technologies or terminologies in a manner like the one-size-fits-all or a magic bullet, that it will be able to solve all the problems that the farmers have. But I think it's very important that we must be frank and open to say, you know, these are the advantages, these are the challenges that we have to work on together. And I think by doing that, like I said, the youth want to be part of the solution. The youth want to feel that we were given this. It had these challenges, but we managed to contribute to solving that challenge. That's something that also makes them, you know, tick. So I think it's very important that whatever it is that we're bringing to the youth, we shouldn't bring it to them as this is a finished good and you must accept it the way it is. We should bring it to it that this is an option that you have, and let's work on it together to make it work and make it meet your needs as a young farmer.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Beatty, for joining us. I really appreciate your sentiments. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Dr. Beatty, for the insights. They are really very vital for our discussion. At this point, I want to invite Sylvia to take over with Nesel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mawiji. And today it's a pleasure for me to be here with Magdi. Magdi Batato is the Executive Vice President of Nestlé. So it's really a pleasure to have you here with us. You're an engineer, right? I'm an engineer too. So.
But I don't know how to do wine. That's the problem.
No, okay.
So I wish I could. I wish I could.
They didn't teach me how to make wine. I had to learn it after on the field.
So as I'm retiring, I still have hope, you know.
Okay.
If I come to you, you will teach me.
So after hearing from the perspective of a farmer organization, and I really want to highlight the importance that this is a process. It's not something that you just give to youth and it's over. We would like to hear more from your experience, and if you could share your journey through Nestlé and focusing on the climate change related projects that you're implementing.
Thank you very much, Sylvia, and thank you for having me. I think I will start still with agripreneurship, which is the main focus of today. We are doing a lot of things for climate, and I might touch on them, but let me start with agripreneurship. About 10 years ago, when I was the CEO for Nestlé in Pakistan, we realized at that time that and you said it, I think both of you said it very nicely, we had the new generation, the sons and daughters of farmers, who were highly educated. They were going to the UK, to top-notch universities. But then they were coming back and they were not really very excited to take over the farm from the parents, because it was not sexy, as you said. It was not really very appealing, and they felt with a diploma from top-notch UK universities, they eventually could do better. And this for us as a business, and I think for humanity overall, but of course also for us as a business, being in food, is a drama. Because if there are no more young farmers that pick up the farm from the parents and that develop further, then of course the food security would be at stake for many years to come. So we noticed that there is a gap to bridge between people who have the knowledge of farming, like the parents, but have little ideas about how to make the farm really profitable. Because at the end of the day, managing a farm is P&L management, it's like managing a business. And there is this gap to bridge with those people who come highly educated as well, the kids, the young generation, but who have no clue about farming. So we teamed up with the university, the Lahore University of Management Science, and we designed with them a course for agropreneurship, to bridge that gap between farmers who know finance but no farming, and farmers who know farming but no finance, to kind of bring them together. And that, I think, was in our company the origin of the thought of agropreneurship. And then in parallel, we developed worldwide what we call, and that's a world program. I'm just giving you a bit the origin of the idea. But then we developed this youth initiative program, where we focused our efforts on three main pillars. One, what we call employability, where we made a commitment that we will facilitate employment of 10 million people by 2030. And we teamed up with other companies, Facebook and other big companies, to be on the same journey of providing more employability. That does not mean they will all finish by working in Nestle or Facebook or other companies, but it means they will be better equipped with knowledge that will allow them to become better employable. And that's the employability pillar. The other pillar is entrepreneurship pillar, which is how to build your own company. Even in R&D, you know, we are helping a lot those small and medium enterprises to be able to strive and to succeed. And the last but not least pillar is agropreneurship, where we have put together courses, very structured modules inspired by how we have started with my little story in Pakistan. We have modules, and it's of course available on the net, on the digital platforms for farmers also to share, where we touch a lot of points. We touch milking for dairy farming, we touch feeding, you know, we touch multi-cropping, we touch regenerative agriculture practices, you know, we touch reforestation, we touch a lot of elements which are very important for climate, and we have modules for a lot of those elements. And so far, we have been able to touch 74,000 agropreneurs that went through that training programs. Not all of them, of course, are farmers, because they start as young agropreneurs and then they become farmers. We have few thousand farmers, part of them already, about 5,000 plus. And we made sure out of the 74,000 agropreneurs that 25,000 and counting today are below 30 years of age. Because what I forgot to tell you is that youth program is targeting 30 years and younger. So it's not targeting people like me. Yeah. So, and we have about 25,000 now that are below 30 years of age and counting. So that's how we deal with it. The journey is not finished. It started 10 years ago and it's going to continue. And we're going to try to inspire and have many more people on board, because we feel it's important not only for climate, as I said, for food security, but also for the sustainability of our own business, being ourselves a food company.
Thank you very much, and I would ask you when is the next time for application, because I should really join. I don't know finance.
So what we did, I forgot to tell you, we sponsored the course. In a sense, we told the university, we will send 10 people from Nestle. Because, you know, a course with no participant doesn't kick off. So we sponsored the 10 people. These are farmers from our farming. That's how it started. But then the course became successful. And then, you know, if people are interested, we don't need anymore to send a minimum amount of students. We still send some students because we are interested in developing our own farmers, but the course now is, so probably you will find something closer to your home than Pakistan, but the same principle applies, and you can also learn online, but you need practical experience, and you can do it on your own farm.
Yeah, that's true. My parents will be happy if I practice in my own winery. We've already heard some numbers, and they are, of course, as you just said, you're having success with this project. Could you maybe tell us a specific case, a success story related, and the impact it had on the community?
Yeah, look, on top of the example I gave you in Pakistan, we are working also in Morocco, for example. We have a factory called Al Jadida in Morocco where we produce Nido, which is a famous Nestle brand, and we take milk from farmers, and we have gone through that with farmers in Morocco, for example. So we have a lot of those stories throughout the world. We have also stories that are successful in Brazil, because it's not only in Pakistan, we started also in Brazil with a lot of farmers in various commodities. And for example, we have more than 2,500 farmers in the cocoa area in Brazil, of course in dairy. So, you know, we have a lot of those stories in the world.
As yesterday was the thematic day for education, and as we mentioned before, me, Mawiji, and Cinzia, but there are also other students here in the audience and other panels going on today of students of the gymnasium. We really value the power of education and of training and coaching young farmers. We would love maybe to hear more from you on how such programs could be scaled up or implemented in different places to amplify even more.
Yeah, I think the first thing that I would say is that when you, and we deal a lot with a lot of farmers directly in the world as Nestle. We have direct contacts with 500,000 farmers and indirect contacts with nearly 5 million farmers. So cooperatives play an important role, of course, but whenever we play we deal directly with farmers, something is important is not to preach, because knowledge is not one way. I think it's very important to take on board the knowledge of the farmers, because they have been doing well for years. And the worst thing that can happen is you go and tell a farmer who is my age, you know, retiring, and you say, no, you know, you got it all wrong. This is not how it works. This is wrong. Not only the how is wrong, but the what is wrong. Because this person has been doing successful farming for many, many years. So it is the first point I want to make. It's a two-way street. For this to scale up, you need to take on board the principles of what farming today was before regenerative agriculture, conservation agriculture, etc. And then you build on that. And in some cases, what's important, my experience with farmers, because I lived 3.5 years in Pakistan, so I dealt myself directly with a lot of farmers. My experience is that the best possible scaling up when a farmer sees a neighbor farming, which is successful. Rather than us going and telling what needs to happen, make sure you have lighthouses. Then this farmer, if you convince one farmer and the farmer becomes successful, then his neighbor will say, oh, he's having the same number of cows, but he's selling more milk. How come? So he starts to get interested. And there is no better teacher for a farmer than another farmer. And I think that's where then the cooperative comes in, and that's where the scaling up becomes much easier. And that's why the way we made the architecture of those modules in agropreneurship is having it available on a sort of platform where people can go and look and what works. And this is like machine learning. There is no real truth. Take, for example, regenerative agriculture. We know the principles of it. We know the practices, you know, put shade trees to sink more carbon in the soil, have multi-cropping, which, by the way, increases the revenue of the farmer. We have done in Philippines, for example, an experimental, on one of the experimental farms, where we plant coffee. And between 2 rows of coffee, we planted chili and banana. What it did, it increased the revenue of the farmer, who can sell now more than coffee. And we committed to buy the chili part for our Maggi products. And also it behaves like cover crop, which means it's better for the climate. So, and then if the soil health becomes better because of those cover crops and because of less tilling, then the soil needs less water. So if you see all that, you are encouraged. And then the farmer next door is encouraged. So that's the best way to scale up. It's not by preaching, it's by sharing best practices and by sharing experience through farmers.
Thank you very much for this last insight, because it's totally true. We can see it every time someone in my area buys maybe a new tractor or a new machinery. You can see the other farmers gathering after the machine to see how it works, if it's okay, if it's good to invest in that. So I can totally relate to this. So let's give a first round of applause to our guests. And I would like to highlight some of the very deep and meaningful words that we heard during the different part of the panels. Starting from Mawiji, our agripreneur, we heard two words, adaptation and mitigation. They are both part of the solution. And he also invited us to move, to be the first to move. And it's like going on a bicycle. You can keep the balance just if you move. And then he also mentioned that he is a farmer by choice. And this is very important for us. I feel like I'm a farmer by choice myself, because I've studied engineering for 5 years. I could have got a different job, also good jobs. But I wanted to be back in my land because I love my land. And I really feel that I'm doing, and I have the power to be directly on the field firsthand there. Then moving to the farming organization, I would like to quote something Cinzia told us during these days, which is, future belongs to the organized. And in an organization, we have the power to share and network and bring the awareness, as Betty mentioned, to the people. And I really loved also that you mentioned TikTok as a way to bring knowledge to young farmers. And finally, to our host here, Nestlé, for the need to educate. As we heard from him, we need young people in farming, young people committing to our planet in whichever career they choose. And I'm so happy to see here such a young representative. As you entered, I felt like very old.
What about me?
It can always be worse, I think.
Yes.
And the idea that farming is, again, a choice and a profession. Because, as you mentioned before, we need a change in narratives. Farming is not anymore one last option if you failed everything else. It can really be empowering, and you need so many skills that you can't even imagine. Now, let's go back to the title. It was Youth as the Caretaker of Nature for Tomorrow. And it happens that the word youth starts with you. Because youth and being young is not just about the age. It's about how you're feeling inside, if you're ready to take the bicycle and move to keep the balance. So we would like to invite you all, before we conclude, to think to this question. And also Mawiji paved my way before with the inspirational quote, what could be your action to inspire others? And so we want to ask you, what's your commitment to our planet? And if you wish, we could also have a couple of inputs from the audience. If you have something in your mind, it doesn't have to be related to farming. It can be wherever you live in your daily life. Would you? Yeah. Yeah. If you have.
The mic around, it's perfectly fine.
So I believe in leaning into our strengths, and one of mine is that I am a storyteller. So outside of my capacity as being here as a member of the Young Farmers Gymnasium. By the way, great job, guys. I'm so proud of you. So if you see me on my phone, I'm literally posting how awesome you are right now. Okay, so you'll see that. But the commitment, the power of telling stories. This is my first experience being part of a global pool of young champions in agriculture, operating at the nexus of agriculture and climate change. And in order for us to create the opportunity to have more youth in the sector, it means we have to show the youth what the new face of agriculture looks like. And it's telling the stories, not just posting on social media. And yes, a TikTok is great, but even yes, it's great, but then it's even that sit-down conversation, the interviews, the documentaries, having us going deeper. When Mawiji spoke about even the failures or the results that we don't want to see, but then there is the resilience in it. That's what, that's what's important. So my commitment is helping to tell the stories of what the new face of agriculture looks like so that more young people can be encouraged.
Thank you very much for the very beautiful and inspiring session. I'm Luisa Volpe, for probably Magbi, you don't know me. I'm head of advocacy policy and partnerships at WFO. And this gymnasium program is held under the partnership between WFO and some other entities who have believed and invested in young farmers to show that the partnership approach also within the value chain is possible and is successful to exchange and reinforce each other's values. Listening to your presentation, I have heard several times words like we provided farmers with solutions, with technology, and they have success thanks to our research. These are our farmers. Now, this approach is a little bit unbalanced according to my eyes. And my question is, would there be any thoughts that Nestlé could do to rebalance a little bit this relationship, making it more win-win and providing a mutual opportunity to learn from each other? Because as farmers, we are very thankful to the research in agriculture that companies do and that can really support agriculture. But also farmers have solutions that they are finding every day because it's their first business to keep the farm fruitable. So would there be any thought from Nestlé's side to reshape a little bit the relationship? Thank you.
Look, I'm not sure when you joined. I have not noticed people moving in the room, but this is exactly what I said. So I'm not sure when you joined, but exactly I said in my little presentation that it's a two-way street. So maybe, I'm not sure if you joined when I was talking, and maybe you missed my point. So I agree fully with what you said, and I think everything we do is already rebalancing. So, but maybe you have come into the room after I spoke, so you have not noticed what I said.
My name is Selena Mawaha. I'm in year 4 and I'm 9 years old. I'm also the youngest delegate at COP. I'm from India. I'm from India, and in India, there's a lot of farming going on, and when farmers farm, they use a lot of pesticides, and I feel like using technology can help create solutions. Like you can make apps that tell how much like pesticide or fertilizer farmers need to use in their farms and their gardens, and I would like them to use many more latest technologies, techniques to farmers, like using apps to see when it rains and when to plant, and at the same time, learn from others how to do better.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, absolutely. Sorry, I fully agree. That's what when we work with farmers, that's exactly what we do. We look with them together. You know, another example, because Sylvia was asking me about the example. An example I forgot to mention is in Chile. We do some smart agriculture with farmers. It's exactly what you said. There are apps for weather, but there are also, they measure with a little tool. You know, they go with a sort of like a bicycle to simplify. They measure the height of the grass, and they know exactly when the cows will graze in which part of their land to optimize that. So it's free grazing. So yeah, there are lots of things where with the technology we can adapt the soil, but we cannot move from today to zero completely. But we can do integrated pest management, as Majri was saying. So yes, of course, absolutely, absolutely. We have a tool that not only Nestle, it's a tool used in the industry called Cool Farm Tool, which takes a lot of those data and kind of gives a good picture of the farming. So you're absolutely right, and bravo. I think you will be a great, I'm sure you'll be a great farmer.
So thank you very much also for your inputs. And as we said, you is part of youth. So just take in your mind, remember what your commitment is, what your action, and become the part of a solution. Join us with a caretaker of nature for tomorrow, but starting from today. Thank you very much for your time and attention. And if you want, we can have a photo together.